too many people think that tariffs are inflationary, but they're actually deflationary. Because what you end up doing is you end up discouraging people from buying imported goods. So now what you start to see is you're seeing a rampant production of U.S. goods, and then you're going to see consumption patterns shift to buy those American goods. But you're going to have a net smaller number of products that are bought because all of those international products that were coming into the United States, people aren't going to buy them at the same rate. And so tariffs are actually a deflationary thing. We've seen this, right? We can go to 2018 and look. There was 3 products that they ended up tariffing. They had tariffed steel, solar panels, and washer machines. All 3 of those products were cheaper within 18 months than they were before the tariffs were put in place, which goes against the entire narrative that tariffs lead to higher prices. Milton Friedman, who most people respect as a great economist, he used to say all the time that tariffs are not necessarily inflationary. Inflation comes from the expansion of the money supply. It's a monetary phenomenon. It is not anything to do with tariffs. And so people are like, oh, you're going to raise prices. No, we're going to raise prices on the imported goods, but it actually leads to domestic producers to go ahead and offer their products. And so people will say, oh, the domestic producers are going to raise their prices. That's not what's happened. Could all of a sudden people completely change the way that they've reacted to tariffs throughout history? Sure. But again, 2018, the prices were lower within 18 months. And so when you look through how this works, you can see that the Fed has to cut interest rates. Inflation right now is at 1.38% according to Trueflation. It's a real-time alternative inflation metric. So unless they are like completely off and they're saying it's 1.38 and actually the government's right at 2.8, which is more than double, then we actually have seen deflationary effects take hold. And we've crashed from January or December all the way down to now under 1.5%. You have tariffs coming, which are deflationary. The Fed better start cutting. But I think that there's a lot of reasons why they haven't done that yet. And so, let's see. Market's pricing in 3 rate cuts now for 2025. We'll see what happens.
Is it fair to counter your point that tariffs are deflationary if given enough time? Meaning you have to get the manufacturing in the United States. That could take 1 to 2 years. And maybe the counter argument would be, oh, this is executive order, not law. So people are scared. In 4 years, will this be retracted? Will we go back? Won't that take time? It'll be inflationary for maybe a year or 2, and then it might be good.
Well, I think it goes back to this idea that if there's goods that Americans can't produce, I always joke that bananas and avocados ain't really our strong suit. And so those things, if there's tariffs, there's one of 2 things that happen. Either the prices will go up because of the tariffs, or what you're starting to see is American companies like Walmart. Walmart just went to all their suppliers and they said, you're not raising our prices. You, supplier, you're going to eat that tariff cost. They're Walmart, right? They can do that. And so now Walmart's saying, I don't care if there's tariffs. We have a contract where I'm going to buy your product for $3.20. I don't care if the tariff's 20%. You're going to eat that into your margin. That's not going to come out of our side. And so what you're able to do is you're able to actually, again, there's no inflationary impact on the consumer if that happens. Because what happened is a foreign country just had smaller margins. Now, every company's not Walmart. And so it goes back to, Chiquita Banana. Are they going to be able to do that? Or do they want to do that? How does that work? So every single product has kind of its own story, its own analysis. And I think that the one critique, right? So like people always say to me like, oh, you really think these tariffs are going to work, whatever. They never ask me like, what is the best critique against the tariffs? And in my opinion, the best critique would be, okay, in 2018, we had very surgical targeted tariffs on specific items. And those items happened to be things where we either had production already or it was fairly quick for foreign companies like the 2 South Korean washer machine manufacturers to come to the US, set up, create thousands of American jobs and get rocking and get prices down in America, right? When you go to blanket tariffs, there naturally are going to be products where we can't do that. But the thought process, and Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, recently was talking about this, where he said the cost savings on most goods will make up for the cost increase on some goods, right? Now, again, sounds good. Let's see what happens, right? But I think that maybe the biggest area, so, if you were to ask me, why do I feel the way that I feel about tariffs? It's because I see everyone in agreement and offsides. This is like, it's Bitcoin all over again. It's the pandemic all over again. It's the 21-22 inflation all over again, right? When you see the media and the economist and what I call like the traditional, I hope I don't get fired financial advisors, when those three groups come together and they all start regurgitating the same talking points, it's very likely actually that some contrarian view is going to be accurate. And so the more that they keep yelling tariffs are bad, and then you go and you talk to them, they're not even doing analysis. They're just like, oh, in economics 101 class, I got told tariffs are inflationary. I say, okay, great. If tariffs are inflationary, why are the countries that have such high tariffs on the rest of the world, why don't they have high inflation? Well, it's not the same. It's, and then it like becomes this like, we just start talking in circles. And so there's countries that have 25% VATs, 25%, every good. Why don't they have high inflation? Well, it's because tariffs are not inflationary. Consumption taxes are not inflationary, right? If they were changing, if they were increasing every year, now if you had a VAT that every year went up 10%, that would be inflationary because every single year you would be increasing the cost. That's not what happens. We put on a tariff and we leave it there. That's it. And so the market will work it out, right? It'll take a couple of months. You'll figure out what is going to be the new price. Some goods will be a little bit more expensive. Some goods will be a little bit less expensive. And then that's it. That's the new price. There's no change in the prices. And so it just goes back to this idea that if you continuously just repeat what you're hearing from the mainstream media or your economics professor, good luck to you. But I think that it was pretty clear what these guys were going to do. I talked about it ad nauseum, saying that I think they should do 5 to 10% blanket tariffs and then use it as an incentive system. Right now, we use tariffs punitively. You do something we don't like, we hit you with tariffs. And it's kind of this like tit for tat counterpunch type thing. Just put 10% tariffs like they're going to do, right? I thought 5% would be a better number, but they went to 10, even better, right? Put 10% and now take tariffs off of the goods that you want coming into your country. And everybody else you're going to pay the tariff. That's fine. But that way, you've now created an incentive system rather than a punitive system, which I think is a much, much better way to do it. And I think the government will raise more revenue in that system too.
Also, Altcoin Daily is so close to hitting 1.6 million subscribers for the first time in history. Under 2,000 to go. It's completely free. It costs you nothing. And we drop one video per day, keeping you informed on this space. Join the Altcoin Daily Army, completely free, link down below.